We're all set? Okay. Good afternoon. So today we invited you here to the Pawtucket Police Department to let you know that we have made an arrest in the cold case of the homicide of Christine Cole. Christine Cole went missing January of 1988, and her body was soon discovered at the end of February of the same year. Last night we had information and we were able to obtain a warrant. We actually arrested João Monteiro in the in the homicide of Christine Cole. I'm going to turn it over to Detective Cormier, who is instrumental in this arrest, and I'm going to ask her to speak about it a little bit and then answer any questions that you may have.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chief. As many of you are aware, we started a cold case unit with the Pawtucket Police last year in 2018, and we launched an initiative statewide where we released the cold case playing cards. In August last year, I opened the Christine Cole case and began working on that case. I met with the State Medical Examiner's Office, the Department of Health, done several interviews, and we were fortunate enough to make an arrest last evening with evidence that had been recently submitted to the Department of Health. I would like to specifically thank Tamara Wong, the forensic scientist at the Department of Health, for the hard work that she did yesterday to make this happen and worked on it all day long. You want me to open up the questions, or you want me to continue on with this?
Is the technology that's available today, for example, DNA, something that you didn't have 31 years ago and that helped you crack this?
That's correct.
Can you tell us what the evidence was that was submitted yesterday?
I cannot say that because it is still an ongoing investigation, and that would harm the integrity of the case and a possible prosecution. It was DNA that linked the suspect.
What was the relationship between the two, and was he ever on the radar 30 years ago?
There was no relationship. As far as we can show, he was a stranger that lived in the neighborhood. What was the other part of the question?
Had he been on the radar?
No, he had not. His name was not in any of the reports.
Was this evidence that was originally collected, or was this new evidence that you pulled this DNA off of?
This was taken from original evidence in the beginning, and it was only during resubmissions and retesting that the evidence was located.
Was it genealogical DNA? Was it degraded DNA? Why wasn't there a match before?
As of talked about the DNA sample, we can just say at this point that once it was submitted and was tested, it linked the suspect to it. So anything further will be brought out during the court prosecution.
Was this DNA that had been tested before then?
So the evidence was submitted before. As for a match, we had just recently received a match when it's resubmitted. So with cold cases, if we do have evidence and we didn't get a match back when we first originally submitted it, whether it been 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people that are assigned to the case, like Detective Cormier, will go then and review the cases, and we do resubmit it just in case somebody else is either linked to the case or maybe has entered the system that maybe wasn't in there before, and then we'll go from there. So every so often with cold cases, we do resubmit evidence to the crime lab.
Is it fair to say that it was a federal database match, or was this genealogical? Was this taken from another source that was then?
It was not a federal database match.
How did you link it? Did this suspect have commit some sort of crime where he had to submit his DNA in some other place? How were you able to get this DNA from originally and link it to this particular person?
So what we can say right now is that we were able to obtain a search warrant, and we were able to get it that way. Okay.
Was there a tip that came in, or was this solely through this DNA evidence?
This was not the result of a tip. This was, in reopening the case, myself and a few others worked extensively working on this case, reviewing all of the reports, autopsy reports, crime scene photos, and it just evolved and unfolded from there, and in the last 48 hours it unfolded very quickly.
What does it mean to you to solve this case?
It means everything to me.
Have you had a chance to talk with her family at all yet?
5 minutes ago, I did have the opportunity to speak with her uncle, and it was a very emotional phone call.
How long ago did you retake up the case?
I started this case in August 2018. I reopened it, and I requested the autopsy reports, which were in the original case file, but that is a matter of procedure that I do when I open a new case. I sat down with the forensic pathologist at the time. I then met with the Department of Health, and I worked my way through there for the last 11 months.
Can you say what led you to seek the search warrant for the suspect's DNA?
I would just say through the investigation.
Is he still living in the neighborhood?
In that particular neighborhood, no.
Where was he arrested?
He was arrested as he was leaving work last evening.
And where does he work?
So, as of right now, I mean, he is a Central Falls resident. He was arrested at work, but I wouldn't feel comfortable releasing his work address.
Can you say at least what city he works in?
Woonsocket.
Can you tell us how the playing cards played in Sullivan's case?
The fact that we started this initiative and started putting this deck of cards together is the reason that I opened this case. I think that that is directly involved with me looking at this case again. And while I started looking at many of them, obviously I can only work on so many at a time. This one had a particular meaning to me because she is a child, I am a mother. They were all important, but this one just really was important to me. So I worked extensively, and I truly, I want to thank the chief and Major Mullen for believing in me and letting me go forward with this. To my family, who has taken the back seat a little bit with these cases, to the families who believed in us, and to the media for helping us get that out. Thank you.
Detective, was this the first of the playing card cases that you started looking at?
Yeah, well, as far as going in the deck, I did open the Wendy Madden case a few years back. That case is still currently being worked on by me, but this is the first one in the deck besides Wendy Madden that I have opened. I was working them simultaneously.
To your knowledge, is this the first one that's been solved in the deck?
Yes.
The arrest, how did that, did it go quietly, or how did this all kind of play out?
Okay.
Yeah.
It did go quietly. We did speak with him earlier in the day. There was a lot of interviews and different procedures that did happen. We did let him leave the station yesterday, pending some of the results from the Department of Health. Once those results were received, we did apply for an arrest warrant last evening, and he was subsequently arrested late last night.
Has he said anything since his arrest? Has he admitted to anything, or his role in anything?
Unfortunately, I cannot answer that right now because of the integrity of the case.
Do we know now how she was actually killed?
I cannot say that at this time because it is an open investigation. We still have a lot of work to do, a lot of paperwork and procedural things, so I cannot say that.
Are you investigating whether he's connected to any other cases?
Certainly.
When did you do the DNA sample?
I'm sorry?
When did you do the DNA sample?
When did I
Look.
take?
Yeah, from the suspect.
Yesterday morning.
And less than 24 hours, you have a match?
Yes, sir.
Now, you mentioned the Madden case as well as this one. Do you have other cold cases that are on your desk right now?
Yes, sir, I do.
Have a count?
There are 13 Pawtucket cases, 9 of them are assigned to me.
Now that this one at least has led to an arrest, what's your confidence level going forward that there are, that there's hope out there for resolution in other cases?
Obviously, my main objective is to help solve all of the cases in the deck and give these families some closure, give these victims some justice, and we're going to continue to work on this, and I hope that this is a message to the people that are responsible for these crimes that we are coming for you and we're not giving up.
So in closing, I would just like to say too that one of the reasons why Detective Cormier and the department decided to do the cold cases was pretty much to bring closure to the families. I mean, these cases were open. They're assigned to detectives that have long since retired. We do take a look at them and we try to keep up to date on them, but obviously the detectives have a caseload that they do on a daily basis too. So to be able to have a point person to do the cold cases and to kind of look into them has brought us a tremendous amount of satisfaction, obviously, and now with this arrest, it proves that the cold case playing cards and the things that we put into it is going to be successful. Yes.
Just thinking, this is 31-some years old. Are there older ones that you're working on as well, or is this the oldest that was in the files?
I believe this is close to the oldest, right?
No, we have
Oh,
cases
that's-
from 1947,
that's right.
1970, 1979. There are some older cases, 1969.
And as technology continues to advance, so do our cases continue to advance, because then now we're given the tools and the opportunity to go back and test things that opportunity obviously wasn't there in the past.
Is there a message here for all of these other, I mean, there's 51 other cases in this deck.
That's right.
There's 51 killers out there, a message to them to make?
I think that the big message, though, is that for a department and individuals, we want to bring closure to the families. And in doing so, obviously, we hope to bring those that were involved or participated or knew about it to justice, and we're going to prosecute them. And obviously, this is a prime example 31 years later that neither Pawtucket nor the other cities and towns that are involved in the cold cases are going to stop doing that. Hence why we kind of do every Friday, it's Fridays, right?
Yes.
Every Friday, we kind of do a recap of the cold cases that we have open. And we just continue, anybody that has information, we always ask them to come forward. Something that they may have, obviously, is beneficial to us, they may not know it. So even any little bit of information, we ask them to bring forward.
Did anyone bring information forward after having seen one of these cold case cards that was helpful to this particular investigation?
So this particular investigation, I can say that Detective Comey did open it right before the cold cases, so we do get information that comes in from all the different cases. But in this particular case, I want to say that it was through her opening the case and kind of re-examining and resubmitting, and then any information that we received that kind of pushed this case forward.
So
Yes.
you worked with Professor in Australia and looking at these cold cases. Can you talk about the kind of assistance he offered you to help you to solve this?
Yes. About 2.5 years ago, I met someone at a homicide conference in Boston, and I truly believe that fate put us sitting next to each other, and that is Dr. David Keatley, who is a professor of criminology. At the time, he was living in England. He now lives in Australia, works for Murdoch University. Dr. Keatley and I formed a very strong bond and friendship, and we began working on some of these cases together, where he brings the academic side, somewhat of profiling, and I obviously do the boots on the ground and doing a lot of the detective work. And we truly collaborate very well. He flies here a few times a year. We sit down with each other, and we turn my dining room into a war room sometimes, and we work on these cases. So I would also like to thank Dr. David Keatley.
So how did he help in this case?
In this case, we have talked many times about this case. We've sat down, we've done some role-playing, we've gone out to the different scenes, just trying to play out different scenarios, where I would work on the reports, and he would kind of input the data, spreadsheets, mapping, and different things, and we just kind of evolve from there. We do that on most of the cases together. I enlist his help with what he is an expert at.
From a law enforcement perspective, what does it mean to you to be part of bringing an arrest to this case that's been found in law enforcement for 31 years now?
This means quite a bit to me, obviously, for so many reasons. That, you know, obviously seeking justice for little Christine Cole is long overdue. Her family has waited so long for answers. I hope that this also provides some hope to the other families involved in this deck, that we're going to continue working and moving forward on this. And, you know, it is an honor that I was able to have a part of this to bring some closure to this case.
Do you know anything about motive, why he allegedly did this?
I cannot answer that at this time.
Did he submit his DNA willingly yesterday, or is that part of the warrant?
It's part of a warrant. Okay, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Do you know when he's going to be